So welcome everyone to a new BWorks case study, this time with Stefan Hagebucher from Agroecology Science. And a brief intro: the Institute of Agroecology was established in 2020 by Swiss agricultural scientist Urs Nickli. And the Institute provides research and advisory services, expertise in project development for food systems of the future, and they're based out of Aarau in Switzerland. And so, Stefan, welcome. And we're looking forward to hearing what results you've achieved with BWorks so far and how your experience was with us. And since we have people from all over the world, we're doing this interview in English so that everyone can see a bit behind the scenes of how we do our venture building and our digital product development. So, Stefan, thanks again for joining us. If we start from the beginning, what did it look like before you started with BWorks, and how did you try to solve your challenges in digitalization?
So it was rather basic before we started working with BWorks. Just a bit of background: during this project, we tried to establish a new sustainability assessment for Swiss agriculture, for the farms themselves. And yeah, we were working mainly Excel based, so it was digital, but of course not online, so very hard to access. The accessibility was a huge problem because an Excel file in itself is really intimidating, and there's a lot of stuff you can go wrong. You need to make sure that the people do not actually damage the formulas behind that. So it was not very scalable. That was the main issue. We had something, but we could not scale it, and we needed somebody that helped us making that available for a large audience, relatively large audience, a large audience for agriculture. But you can't do 60,000 surveys with Excel. You can do 60. So that was the big thing. And we needed somebody who helps us bring that up to scale. That is the big thing.
And what would you say were the activities that cost you most time, starting from where you just mentioned?
With the Excel, you cannot give that to somebody without instructions. It's just not possible. And Excel is not intuitive or interactive. You need somebody, not in all cases, but in at least half of the cases, you need somebody that helps the person who does the survey to actually fill it out. And that means 3 to 4 hours of one advisor on a farm, including travel time. So I don't have to explain you why that is not scalable. So we needed something that makes makes people a bit more easier to use the program, the whole assessment.
I see. So if you go back for a second, where did you hear from us or from BWorks, and what interested you in working with BWorks?
It's been a long. The first contact with BWorks happened before actually I started working at Agroecology. So it's a bit, but we needed help with digital work, and we started an online research, and your place looked very promising, especially the whole, because you are not only you don't only provide software development, you also bring so much more, all the venture building, what you're talking about. So that's something that was very intriguing, because it's not only people who just, okay, here's a problem, here's some code, have fun. Because you can get a bit more impact and more input from you guys than from another development company.
Yeah. And so if we go back to the collaboration, how would you describe the collaboration with us? Can you describe how it is working with us?
It was very straightforward and very efficient. It was like one of the big things, was we were a bit under pressure to get something out, because we didn't have a huge amount of time to get it all going, because working with farmers, you have to wait for certain times when they have as like certain slots in the year where they have time where you can actually work with them. And it's a project anyway that took a long time. So we need somebody when we started developing the application, we need somebody who understands quickly what's the problem and who can quickly get the solution. And let's say our company doesn't have a huge amount of experience in developing software because it's actually the first project we're doing in this kind. And we need somebody that could also guide us a bit, could understand what are our issues and where we are maybe a little bit lost sometimes because it's a new world for us, and that was provided by you guys.
Yeah. If you think back at when we started, how was the onboarding for you? So at the very beginning, when you started the project with us?
It was really good. I mean, I contacted you September last year, something like that. And very quickly you updated the offer we had from the previous thing that we did not follow through. And we had a project running very quickly, and we very quickly came to an agreement, and we had the nice little workshops in Zurich that were very efficient. We think we really nailed down a lot of the issues that could happen when actually working with the software, not just the back end. I think the back end was complicated enough, but the front end is like for the whole project. The back end is, also the back end for me is also the assessment themselves, not just the technical implication, but also the Excel itself. There was sort of I was quite sure we can get something done.
Mm-hmm.
But the front end, that was a whole different beast. Because if no good backend, no backend is that good that you can solve bad front end and nobody actually used it. And we had this very nice 2-day workshop, and we identified a lot of issues, and I actually understood some of the potential issues that could come along with the whole process. I actually understood much better after the workshop. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about this onboarding process at the beginning and getting into the project, how much in terms of your resources did you need to invest yourself?
I can't tell you how many days. I have it somewhere I can look it up, but it was not much. It was. Mm-hmm. Of course, you need some time to invest. Some time, otherwise the project doesn't work. You cannot just hand it over to when somebody solves all your problems. But it was a reasonable mm-hmm. amount of time, and it was just within the last autumn and winter was a very stressful phase for us. A lot of projects running in parallel and some very challenging problems and projects, and we still had enough time to do those and to develop the AELSA software. So that was absolutely reasonable. Also, I cannot quantify it.
All right. If we talk briefly about value delivery of this project, what was the area that brought you the most value in this project?
How do you define value in this case?
Exactly. How would you describe the value? What is the thing that brought you the biggest impact?
Okay, so we're not talking about ROI or something like that at the moment. Just the value. It is for the whole project. The value. It's, as I said, it helped us better understand the needs of the users, and especially some of your process, especially the workshops in the beginning and the regular meetings, the sprint meetings. Also, we just modified what we actually want. We also could modify our own expectations, what is possible and how you should approach that. It was a huge value, and like if we look at the project as a whole, the main value is we actually have something that we can use on a larger scale. So without Beaworks, there would not be a project at the moment.
In your own words, for people seeing this the first time, can you briefly explain the difficulty of what actually was built, so that someone can imagine what it is and now what value this is bringing compared to where it started, where there wasn't this product or this solution out there yet?
So a sustainability, I try to keep it brief. Sustainability assessment tries to assess the sustainability of an entity. And sustainability means ecology, economy, good governance, and social welfare. Our one, you can do that for everything. Our one is for agriculture. And agriculture means the farms itself. So no dairy production later on, no transport, just like the farm and all the upstream processes behind it, like where the fertilizers come from. Like that. So, and sustainability assessment is basically a huge questionnaire that has some pretty complicated calculations, not as complicated as, for example, CO2 footprint, but still there's a lot of calculations, and it's nothing that you do in 5 minutes. So it has how many questions? Some depending on the type of production, 150 to 200 questions. Everything from yes/no questions to complex complex benchmarkings, and so it's a very complicated beast. And there are a couple other applications like that out there. Most of them I don't find very good from the front end, especially. They are good from a technical point of view, but they are okay-ish from the front end. So people, like for the big problem for a farmer is the farmer itself is a person who doesn't like to work in an office, because that's the reason he's a farmer. So all this bookkeeping and desk work, he's not a big fan of. And one of the key issues is to have something that the farmer actually, he will never enjoy it, but it's that he will do it in a way for him that's acceptable.
Yeah.
So that's the big challenge, actually, to have something that's as complex as it is and people actually can use it. And also the outputs you generate in the end, that these are accessible.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones, basically getting a phone book back with 200 pages, which is not something that farmer will ever.
And so if we go back to this project, so the difference here is we started out with your technology and the questionnaire that you had already developed, right? So you and your colleagues had developed this huge Excel that you just talked about that took into account all of these things, both the input, the questionnaire, as well as the calculation and the output. And then we came in, helped you sort this out, make this more user-friendly, develop the backend, the algorithms to transfer this Excel into a web-based software, right?
Exactly.
And so now if we were to summarize the results, what would you say are the results that you now have reached through this collaboration with us from this?
At the moment, we have a very flexible software or application. And that's really important because these type of assessments, they evolve. So they are not set in stone from now until eternity. We will figure out somehow the way the question is, maybe some questions are not relevant, some we have missed. So we have to update that. And Beaworks has supplied us with a solution that makes it easy for us to adapt that easy and simple. We don't have to wait like, it doesn't make sense to change it now because it's all hardwired and we need to reset everything. It takes a lot of time to do that. Now we can quickly change something, especially minor things that are annoying.
Could you explain in a few examples what you now can do compared to where you started out with the web-based software that we developed?
The main thing is actually scalability. As I said before, it's actually now possible to reach a larger audience, because without a web-based application you can't. And also distance-wise, of course, it's easy to do that. I mean, we are in Aarau, so like everything like 50, 100 kilometers around is easy. You get driving distance. Maybe you can fit in a couple, can work it out. But then you have people in the Romandy or in Valais. This is complex stuff. And of course, language. Maybe I forgot that because we have a multi-language ability. So I don't need, if I have a farm in somewhere in the Romandy, we do not need to figure out, okay, who of the French speakers actually has time to go down there, because we don't have that many. So now, boom, we can also access the French and Italian speaking parts. much better now that way.
So in terms of, let's maybe quickly touch about usability and time saving.
Yep.
If you compare, so you said you started out with this huge Excel, right?
Yep.
And now you have a web-based software that allows you to take this Excel, upload it, and it's dynamically mapped, meaning that you don't have to reconfigure it inside of the web application. Yep. Can you give us an idea how this compares to before in terms of how much time it takes you now compared to before to manage this, ease of use, or maybe any other valuable aspects that are an improvement to where you started out through our software solution or through the application?
I mean, the time saving is massive. Basically, one assessment, as we did it before, took half a day of our time, including gasoline going to a place, travel costs. That's significant. Now, for each assessment, it depends a bit. Like if the farmer is really like, if the farmer actually is well versed in technology, because some of them are not, but these are really hard to access anyway. 10 to 15 minutes, and this probably, and we can probably reduce that time when we improve our own Excel. So I think that's actually the main bottleneck for that the Excel itself needs to be like what we actually provide. The content needs to be more accessible. So yeah, and that's a big difference. So like 3 to 4 hours, like 4 to 5 hours instead of 50 minutes.
For each of the assessments that you have to do.
Yeah. And this will, like, even after we fixed some of the small little issues with the Excel itself, it goes down massively. Yeah, to 5 minutes, something like that. I'm guessing.
Are there any other massive improvements that you would like to mention, maybe in terms of usability or any other areas that positively affect agroecology as a company?
Usability, I mean, an online application, it's really hard to describe because like an Excel, this huge Excel is so intimidating. And having a nice, well-designed questionnaire that breaks it down, you have a progress bar and something that reads you through and a wizard, and it's all the little things, an FAQ that makes it so much, it's really hard to compare. It's like, it's two different worlds, you can't compare. And like just the sheer, like we were always afraid when we give that survey just to somebody, he does something with that, does he break the Excel? Does he accidentally delete like a couple of rows and we don't realize that and just get, after half a day of work, you could just get some incoherent nonsense back. So yeah, and yeah, it's a massive improvement. And yeah, right. It's also reliability. I know where the data is. We have a database and I don't have to go through a lot of cryptically wrongly labeled Excel files that are somewhere on a drive, and yeah, it's improvement in a lot of areas.
That's great to hear.
Yep.
So let's briefly talk about investment. So, it is difficult to determine the return on investment depending on the case, also in this case, but have you calculated how much effort or personnel, so human resource costs, you would have if you had to create the same solution without us? So without Beaworks.
That's a really difficult one in this case.
The question is, what would you have to do alternatively in terms of investment or in terms of personnel, and how long would it take, you think?
Oh yeah, that's a difficult one. In this case, it's a really difficult one because we didn't have like an online version before. It's not like we improved the like in other cases, you might improve a process and it's that already existed, but 50% more, 100% more than we paid you, probably something like that.
Okay.
Around that number. I mean, it's ballparking this because it's really hard in this case because this is not the typical business case because it's a science. It's a science project. So we also have our budgets, but of course, there's no clear revenue issues at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No,
it's
of
a bit
course.
hard. It's a bit hard to say. And I mean, if you would have done it ourselves, we had actually had to set everything ourselves. We needed more, the developers and all that. It would have been a huge mess.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense. Okay. And final and most important question, how likely are you to recommend Beaworks to a company like yours?
Very likely. Very, very likely. So no, it's a pleasure working with you, and we continue working with you. So I think I don't have to say anything else. It's worked very well.
And if you look at the future, so if someone came to us, why should someone work with Beaworks, in your own words?
You are really good in understanding the problems, and you don't try to sell us a solution for problems we don't have, or create more problems than we had before. And it's like we get that what we needed, and in a creative way. It's not like the solution we have with the mapping is really excellent. It's exactly what we needed, and probably not different developer would have just okay, here's the Excel. We just make the program from that, very inflexible, and yeah, we came up with an interesting, good solution. And you just provided us with the solution we needed, not with some solution.
So very glad to hear that. So
yeah, perfect.
Stefan, thank you very much for this.
It's a pleasure.
It was very insightful. Thanks for also sharing your story and also your story about the project. Mm-hmm. And see you soon in the upcoming project then.
Yeah, thank you.